What is going on, everybody? Voidlego here, back for a brand new episode of Umineko When They Cry. Last time on, we started up episode 7 very differently from others. We were in this higher dimension of someone being accused, a servant specifically, of a different murder, completely separate from Wokenjima, when a man burst in named Willard H. Wright, a once member of the Angel's office, or a special force of detectives, now is just roaming around solving cases when he really feels like it. And so he comes in and is able to disprove that the servant was the one to commit the murder, or at least provide some doubt in the other Angels' whole thing. He is summoned by Burncastle to specifically the chapel in Wokenjima, in which he has been summoned by Burncastle for the sole purpose of solving the murder of Beatrice, the original one, from 1950, Kinzo's original lover. And so he must solve it using the variety of characters, or suspects you could say, at his disposal. But there's a brand new character that he has never seen before, or neither has the audience, and that is Rion Mira, the older brother of Jessica that we've never seen before, which I still think is the man from 19 years ago. But in this specific fragment, he was never tossed away, or was never in the accident with the servant, and was able to grow up within the Mira family. And so the both of them set off to solve the murder of Beatrice and to truly know what's going on with everything, which I feel like is going to be a lot of fun. I actually like, well, from the little we've seen of Willard, he seems like to be a very interesting protagonist. And there's already a cute, like, dynamic between him and Leon, which is nice. Some comments I want to get to. One is that Willard H. White is not a reference to Phoenix Wright, like I thought last episode, but is actually a reference to the actual name of S.S. Van Dyne, which I found that very surprising. S.S. Van Dyne was actually a pseudonym for Willard H. Wright, a very much real person back in the 1930s, 1920s, a very early pioneer, or, early American writer for detective fiction, which I find very, very interesting. Another thing is that Rion is voiced by the voice actress for Saber in the Fate series, which once again proves my theory that eventually one of these days I'm going to have to play Fate, Fate Night, Stay Night eventually. So give it, just count the days, gentlemen, because eventually I'll get to that series, and oh boy, that's going to be, I swear to God, if I do a fucking Let's Play of Fate Grand Order, that's it, that's it for me. What else was there? For comments specifically, oh, there was one other comment that posed 3 questions for me. One specifically, they reminded me that in the credit song of episode 6, the number that was referred to back in episode 4 was referred to once again, so I should keep that number in mind, so thank you very much for that. The second question from this person was, in episode 4, referring to the first episode, a rich truth was discovered or talked about by Beatrice that said all unidentified corpses had their identities correctly. Like, their identities, like, their assumed identities are corrected, not body doubles or anything like that. And the third question was, how could the Shannon corpse that Battleboy looked at in episode 2 be possibly faked, since he is the detective in episode 2, and he saw right through the hole within her skull. So, I've been thinking about this a lot. I had this whole thing about, like, going on a huge, like, thought train of, specifically, episode 5 and Erica assuming her corpses were right, the ones that had their necks swept open and all that, and that she was wrong about that. But eventually I came upon, like, oh yeah, she never did see the corpses themselves. She just got an examination discussed to her by Nanjo instead. She never directly saw the corpses themselves, which completely contradicts that entire train of thought. So I thought of a different thing, specifically. Now, every time Battlewars the detective, he either sees Cannon or Shannon's corpse. He never sees both of them. At all. In episode 1, he never actually sees Shannon's corpse. The rest of the family does, more specifically the adults and George, see Shannon's corpse, but never Battler. Battler is too focused on Rudolph and Curie, obviously, in that moment. So he never sees her corpse. The corpse he does see, 100%, is Cannon's corpse in the boiler room. Which adds to my theory of Shannon Cannon being the same person, being the one and the same. So, obviously, because Cannon is dead, we can then assume Shannon is also dead, since if you kill one, you kill the other. In episode 2, Cannon's corpse is never found at all. Battler never sees his corpse in the slightest. The corpse he does see is Shannon's corpse. So yes, what I'm proposing here is the corpse that Battler actually saw in episode 2 of Shannon is actually Shannon, like 100%. It's not a fake death, it's not a body double, it's nothing like that, it's actually Shannon in the full. She is actually dead in that moment. In episode 3, once again, he never sees either their corpses as they're in the giant locked room circle. In episode 4, the only corpse Battler sees is once again Shannon's, and he never sees Cannon's, yet the Red Truth is able to say that Cannon is dead, and not, like, missing or whatever like that. And how is that able to be possible? Well, if one is dead, you kill the other, since they're the same person. So, once again, it pretty much just adds more credibility to my theory that they're one and the same. And also that whole scene with Willard and Shannon. Last episode of him asking for both of them to be in the same room, in which she couldn't do that because the one that orders her won't allow it at all. So I feel like that just adds to my theory a lot more, which thank you for the questions, by the way. I always like when my theories are challenged. It just provides a better game to myself. One other thing, before I forget, actually 2 other things. First of all, I killed along Erica. I completely forgot there was a human version of Erica. So thank you guys so much for reminding me of this. So let me actually see the actual tip here. Okay. Fell from a pressure boat and currently missing due to the Wakajima explosion accident. What? That occurred shortly after her own accident was lost to history. Her family argues that she might have drifted to Okajima and got involved in the accident, but no evidence indicating her presence on the island has been found at the scene. Foragers who learn of her fall from the boat often theorize that she drifted onto Okajima and add her into the witch illusion. Son of a bitch, that fucking oh my god. Son of a bitch. That just confirmed episode 4 for me. Specifically Angie's whole section about how there was no evidence to prove that Ava was the murderer. And I think I theorized back then that, like, an explosion might have happened. I'm pretty sure, because I was thinking along those lines. An explosion accident, huh? I guess that would explain why Angie wasn't able to find the mansion either in episode 4. Holy shit. That actually adds a lot. Oh, fuck. Okay. Okay. Alright, interesting. One other thing someone reminded me to do is to actually resurrect this Cheshire sister, which I completely forgot to do. A quiet girl who's always been teased by everyone, but that is because they all love her very much. The trumpet is their specialty. Everyone skips to her lovely tone. Trumpet, which connects to Maria's little rabbit dolls back in episode 4. Gotta keep all my episodes right. Once again, even though I'm thinking that Shannon's the fucking culprit, there's still a lot of evidence that shows that Maria's also the culprit. Shit, maybe I'm right on both theories. But yeah, the trumpet specifically, the little rabbit statues that Maria had. Interesting. What the fuck does that mean then? Guys, I guess the Cheshire Sisters is Maria's furniture, I guess. All very interesting. But one other thing I want to comment on before we continue on is I looked a little into SS Van Dyne's history, aka just read his Wikipedia page for like 10 minutes. And he seemed like a very interesting character or a person. He was a art critic first and foremost. It looked like he never intended to become a traditional detective fiction writer. He was just, first and above, just an art critic. But eventually, when he got into, like, basically down on his luck, eventually in, like, 1929 or something like that, he wrote his first detective novel. And from what I read on his Wikipedia page, so I'm now by no means an expert on this person, it seemed like he was kind of downtrodden that these detective works are his most famous, and that he would never be regarded as a high-class art critic, but rather be known more by his detective work than anything truly serious. Which I find that very fascinating because, first of all, it adds to the whole, like, thing of he was kind of ashamed of it because, well, he used a pseudonym. If you're going to use a pseudonym, that must mean the thing you're creating, you're either ashamed of it or you just want to hide your identity for the sake of it, not when people know who you are truly. Which ties in with Toya, aka Feathering, who also used a pseudonym in order to write her version of the her forgeries of the Wokonjima incident, which I find very fascinating. And I also read through his 20 rules of detective fiction, and they all seemed very standard. They're very much comparable to Knox's 10 Commandments. Very similar things of, like, make sure to present all the clues to the audience, don't make it somebody obvious, don't do a Deus Ex Machina, don't do any of that. Just basic rules of making a good mystery story, pretty much. But the one rule that fascinated me the most, and actually, like, in my opinion, let us peer into what Van Dyne actually thought detective fiction should be, would be Rule 16 specifically. Now, Rule 16, in basic terms, because it's all when fancy right, is Van Dyne suggesting to the author, do not lollygag with descriptions. Do not give unnecessary details about the world. Basically, what he's saying is, yes, you should set up the premise, you should set up the murder, you should set up the culprit, you should set up the world, but once you hook an audience into that world, once you've done a great enough job to that point that the audience is now invested in it, do not give more details than there is necessary to. Basically, just don't go into pages upon pages of just pure description about, like, the mansion or whatever. And the description of this rule specifically really peers into what Van Dyne thought detective fiction should be, and that is a thinking puzzle, a game, above all else. That is what he thought detective fiction should be, is the audience is testing their own brain towards the story and trying to figure out the solution before the detective can, and find out who the culprit is. It seems like Van Dyne just saw detective fiction as merely present the audience with a problem, give them the solution, or give them clues for that solution, and let them figure it out on their own. He truly did seem like a man who viewed detective fiction as a board game, a brain teaser, a kind of sporting event, in his own words. of the audience challenging themselves to figure out the murder before it is revealed in the story. And I find that very fascinating. We can actually see that a little bit in Willard's characterization so far, at least in the first part, where he was very straightforward with asking questions about, like, what the hell is going on, you know? I just find it very fascinating, Van Dyne's interpretation of what a detective story should be, which is a game, which you could say is a very, very, very early iteration of what would become video games, you know. Some people view video games as merely just, you know, test out their brain to challenge themselves in, you know, feats of skill and technique and muscle memory and all that. And I don't know, I just find it very fascinating that Ryokushio 7 would put, quite literally, Willard H. Wright into this game. I mean, he uses his actual fucking name. It's not SS Van Dyne, it's Willard H. Wright. There is no, like, misspelling, no nothing. It is quite literally a caricature of this very famous novelist. So hopefully that can provide some context for me, at least, of the characterization of Will, and just add more context to it so I can enjoy the story even more. So, enough talking, how about we actually get into the game, shall we? Jeez.
ウィラードさんをお連れしました。
Before I forget, I just want to make this suggestion real quick. If any artists are in the audience right now, I want someone to make a cool little fan art of Kim and Harry from Disco Elysium swapping outfits with Leon and Willard and Will, and have them swap outfits. I feel like that'd be a really cool art piece. Pretty fucking funny since you know, just the whole thing of I don't know, it'd just be funny, whatever. All right. Kinzo and Genji could be seen in the VIP room. Kinzo was sitting back in a chair, his eyes closed as though in a troubled sleep.
親方様、お客様がお見えになりました。
Shut up, Genji. Kinzo slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes were red from crying. They regained their focus and slowly fell on Will.
私が後ろ宮金蔵である。
ウィル。
ウィラードだ。お悔やみ申し上げる。
ベアトリーチェの葬儀に訪ねてくるとは、そなたは何者なのか。
誰でもない。誰とも関係ない。深く考えるな。頭痛になら。
もう少し言葉遣いにご注意をお願いいたします。
Smile.
おかしな客人だ。それで、この私に何用か。
Oh, also, one other detail is the reason why Will has a blue overcoat is one of SS Van Dyne's stories was called The Man in the Blue Overcoat, which is a cool detail.
ベアトリーチェのことを聞きたい。
何?
Kinzo's gaze grew sharp. Leon felt a bit lightheaded and wondered why this guy had to be so disrect.
聞いてどうする。お前は誰でもないのである。ベアトリーチェのことを知ってどうするという。何の意味があるというのか。
俺が誰でもないからこそ、お前の物語を公正に聞き、残すことができる。お前はじきにこの世を去るだろう。その時、ベアトリーチェのことを何も語らずに死んだのだ。お前の子供たちは彼らが好き勝手に考えた物語でベアトリーチェを就職し記録に残すだろう。
面白い若造だ。お前は遺言屋を気取ろうというわけか。だがそれは余計なお世話というものよ。ベアトリーチェは私だけのベアトリーチェだ。我が何を語ろうとも私とあれの物語は誰にも怪我せぬ。何の意味も持たぬ。クラウスたちがどう曲解しようとも痛くも痒くもないわ。
ウィラード様、親方様は遺言を好まれます。生きているうちより。
だろうな。らしからぬこととは思っていた。
誠意ある限りあがいてこそ人間であろうが、それを早々に諦め遺言に残そうという浅ましさなど少子千万。
Of course.
確かにその方がお前らしい。死ぬかもしれないから過去語りを記せと言い出すのは確かにお前の柄じゃね
当主様がベアトリーチェ様のことを深く深く愛しておられたことが存じ上げております。私たちにとって当主様は最大の尊敬の対象であるとともに生きる全ての模範です。どうか迷える私たちのために、いかにしておじい様が彼女を愛し抜いたか、愛ゆえに生き抜いたか、その愛の強さを私たちにお導きくださるようお願いすることはできないでしょうか。
え。なかなか達者だ。
あなたが言葉を選ばないからです。
若ず、お前はベアトリーチェの何を知っているというのか。
A little bit.
真に無知なる者は関心さえ持たぬ。ベアトリーチェの名を知っている時点で無知なる者ではなく縁なき者でもない。
道理だな。俺が知っているベアトリーチェはお前がかつて六軒島に屋敷を設ける以前に出会った最愛の女だ。しかしおそらくは死別して娘を残した。
No.
それがクワドリアンで育てられていた娘だ。
ウィラード様、当六軒島にはクワドリアンなる建物は存在いたします。
Loyal to the very end, Genji.
そのクワドリアンという名前、さっきローザおばさんと話した時にも口にして、それは一体何なんですか？
察しはついてるはずだ。愛人の娘を囲う六軒島の森の奥深くにある隠し屋敷の名だ。
面白い。クワドリアンの名を知ろうとはな。続けよ。お前に興味が出たぞ。
Kinzo shrugged and grinned.
クワドリアンにいたのはベアトリーチェの娘だろう。だが少なくともお前はそうは思っていなかった。
More like a reincarnation of her.
ほう。ならば何だと思っていたというのか。
後宮ローザはクワドリアンにて多少の身の上話を交わしている。その中でベアトリーチェはお前のことを指して金蔵と呼んでいる。これはお前を前にしても同じだ。彼女はお前を父と思っていると言ったにもかかわらず父とは呼んでいなかった。
Mm-hmm.
呼ばなかったのか、呼ぶことは許されなかったのか。それが意味することは一つしかない。
それは何だというのか。
I mean, you loved her.
生まれ変わりだ。
That too.
お前は娘を忘れがたみだとは思わなかった。死んだベアトリーチェが 新しい体で蘇ったと信じたんだ。源氏、あんたはかつて夏日たちの前で金蔵とベアトリーチェに子供はいなかったと証言したことがあるな。
記憶にございませんが。
Yeah, different fragment, don't worry about it. Of course, this game's Genji probably wouldn't remember that. However, near the end of the first game, when the survivors had all gathered in Kinzo's study, Genji was asked whether Kinzo and Beatrice ever had a child together. And he denied it, saying, "I have not heard of anything like that."
聞いたことがないか。ある意味で金蔵の腹心らしい模範的な返答と言える。
I mean, if they were covering up his death, why wouldn't he cover up the fact that there was a child, a daughter?
何しろ金蔵にとってその娘は生まれ変わりであって娘ではないんだ。
ウィル、何の話か分かりませんが、当主様への冒涜は許しません。
冒涜じゃねえ、推理だ。
Yeah.
だが心は理解する。ベアトリーチェはお前にとって最愛の女だ。死ぬ色あせることなく永遠に。だが美しい金髪に青い瞳を持ち、その面影を幼くして持ち合わせていたその娘、お前は次第に生まれ変わりではないかと信じるようになったとして、それはおかしいことじゃね
親方様、よろしいのですか。
Should I drag this rude child out? Genji asked Kinzo. For a while, Kinzo hung his head in silence, as though remembering something from his own past.
え。娘は美しく育ち生き写しになった。お前は狂気したろうな。だがそれでお前が全て満たされていたかは怪しい。なぜならお前にとってベアトリーチェは生まれ変わりである。当の本人にとってはそうではなかったから。
なぜそのようなことがわかるのか。
本人は自分がベアトリーチェと呼ばれることに違和感を拭えずにいた。人は生まれながらに与えられた自分の名前に違和感を覚える。だが彼女は覚えた。それはベアトリーチェという名が自分のものではないことを彼女は自覚していたにかかわらない。
Yeah, that's why she stated why, she didn't feel like she was Beatrice. In corridor, she asked both Kinzo and Rosa about who she was.
わらわは何者なのか。今はわらわのことをベアトリーチェと呼ぶ。それは確かにそなたの言うように偉大な魔女の名前らしい。しかしそれはわらわではないのだ。わらわには魔法など何も使えぬ。わらわはその魔女の魂を子供に。
記憶はいずれ戻ったのだ。
Of course it would, Kinzo.
あれは紛れもなくベアトリーチェの生まれ変わり。記憶は戻りつつあった。我が魔術の儀式によってわずかずつではあるが記憶を取り戻しつつあった。
当主様。
驚くことじゃねえ。これまでのゲームの情報を並べりゃ導かれるそのままの答えだ。
Yeah.
上層のベアトリーチェはそれを指して死んで逃れた魔女の魂を逃さず肉の体に捕らえて閉じ込めたと。そして記憶も力も封じられていると例えた。その解釈もこの推理なら筋が通る。
Yeah.
ウィラード様、親方様は偉大なる魔法の儀式により亡きベアトリーチェ様の生まれ変わりの赤子を得たのでございます。それを否定することはできません。
コウノトリを否定はしねえ。そして金蔵がどれだけベアトリーチェという女を深く愛しているか、疑う忘れがためにどういう愛情を注ぐかは人の勝手だ。育つほどに似ていくその姿に金蔵が愛ゆえに特別な感情を持ったとしても、俺はそれを人間らしい感情だと思うぜ。
お前に我が愛が理解できるというのか。
理解する資格はねえ。だが否定する資格もね
ベアトリーチェ、私を許してくれ。
A man consumed by so much grief for his dead wife that he modeled his own daughter after her in every single way, just so he could perhaps have that feeling back, that love he had for her. Kinzo sobbed quietly for a while, wiping away his tears. Because of love, he believes she was Beatrice reborn and raised her that way. However, somewhere in his heart, he might have felt pangs of conscience, telling him that he might be forcing his emotions on someone who wasn't really Beatrice. Then the Beatrice of Corridor and an unexpected guest, Rosa. That woman simply couldn't believe that she was the Beatrice Kinzo desired. She couldn't stand the fact that she didn't understand who she was, and she wanted to escape to the outside world. Then she fell, losing both his wife and his daughter. Then she fell from the cliff and died.
現状、表に出せぬその死を内々で処理した。葬式ってのは死者のためにやるんじゃねえ。生きてる人間が死んだ人間への未練を断ち切るために行うもんだ。それができなかった。だからただれたんだ。
ベアトリーチェ、
おじいさま。
あんたは愛人の娘を、いやベアトリーチェを二度失った。その悲しみを表に出すことができず、胸の奥に押し込む。
And he locked himself up in a study in order to keep finding yet another way to make her reincarnate.
それがやがてただれて狂気に変わった。それが晩年まで異常なまでのオカルト宗に駆り立て。
ベアトリーチェ、ベアトリーチェ、なぜに二度までも私の前から去るのか。お前の頬にその美しい髪、瞳を私は二度も抱きしめながら、なぜに二度も死すのか。それほどまでに私を。
By now, Kinzo wasn't even trying to suppress his sobs. He sometimes scratched at his head in anguish, sometimes faced the heavens like an opera singer. Kinzo yelled over and over again, repeating Beatrice's name. At that moment, there was a quiet sound of a door closing. When they turned around, she was already there. Kumasawa had appeared.
そこまでをご存知でしたら、もうすべてをお話ししてもよろしいのではありませんか?
The rest, huh?
そこまでを知るなら、これ以上何も語ることなどないとも思うが。
いいえ、語るべきでございます。私は女として、クワドリアンのベアトリーチェ様のお心を誰かに伝えねばと思ってまいりました。そしてその資格を持つ人間が現れました。今こそ全てを包み隠さずお話しすべき時かと存じます。
Here we go.
熊沢さんは知っているのですか？ベアトリーチェのことを。
知ってるだろう。第4のゲームの時、連絡船の船長は熊沢がクワドリアンに出入りしていたことを証言している。おそらく熊沢は屋敷とクワドリアンの双方で異なる勤務シフトを持っていたに違いない。若い娘の世話だ。育児経験の豊富な熊沢はさぞ重宝されただろう。
Maybe that young Beatrice saw Kumasawa as Virtuia.
さようでございます。乳母であったとおっしゃっていただいてもよろしいかと思います。
そんな、信じられない。本当にウィルさんの話は本当なんですか？
はい、事実でございます。ベアトリーチェ様のために島の反対側に建てられた秘密の屋敷、クワドリアンの存在は真実でございます。
金蔵が正妻といつ結婚したかは知らねえが、当時すでに莫大な財産を持ち、六軒島を丸ごと買い取った金蔵は交わらぬ2つの屋敷を建てて、そこに2つの生活を両立させたんだ。
Kinzo's children had also been aware of Kinzo's clandestine eccentricities at the time. It probably had been easy to maintain two separate wives. Moreover, Kinzo's wife had been suspicious and had sniffed around all the time.
親方様はお時間の許す限りクワドリアンへ通われました。時にはご出張と偽られ、何日も滞在され、ベアトリーチェ様との生活を大切になさいました。それは親子としての関係だけでなく、亡きベアトリーチェ様への深い愛を垣間見れる心温まるものでございましたとも。
それは亡きベアトリーチェの代用品として扱ったこともあったと言っているようにも聞こえるな。
Yeah.
おや、そう聞こえたなら申し訳ございません。ベアトリーチェ様は父からの愛は一心に受けられていたでしょう。しかし時にご自身に理解できぬ愛を強いられていたことは否定できません。
Kurosawa's tone made it sound as though she was scolding Kinzo. As a mother who had raised many kids, Kumasawa had probably spotted that Kinzo's love was sometimes misplaced. However, the more she grew to look like her mother, the more distorted and twisted Kinzo's heart became. Yeah, it definitely turned from, not exactly a parent's love, but more that of a, lover's. Because of his deep love, it grew very, very twisted.
なじれ我が友よ。分かっておる。我が愛は永遠に不滅。なれどそれが間違った相手に注がれたことがあったの。私は認めねばならぬ。
おじい様、そんな、まさか。
Yeah. Yeah.
イオン様、世の中のすべての人間には必ず何かの縁がございます。身に覚えがなくと必ず何かの縁がございます。その縁が人に絡みつき引き寄せるのでございます。
そんな、おじい様。
Just as Kinzo had done, Leon also wiped away tears and stared down at the floor. Apparently, the truth had been too much of a shock for the young successor to handle. Yeah, it's not the greatest to hear all about this for you, about your grandfather.
親方様、もう語る時ではございませんか。
そうか。その時が来たか。我が友よ。
あんたが語らなきゃ何も真実は明らかにならない。
So what are you gonna do, Kinzo?
親方様、もはや知る権利と資格があるかと思います。
分かっている。今日という私の気まぐれな葬儀に天のベアトリーチェが贖罪の機会を与えたのだろう。今日まで話さなかったことを許せ。
After taking a deep breath, Kinzo finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face. He looked at Will and Leon with his red eyes.
おじい様。
Admit to your sin, Kinzo.
イオンも聞け。客人、ウィラードと言ったか。
あ
この私が自らの口より真実を話せるうちにこの機会を設けてくれたことを感謝する。お前はきっとベアトリーチェより使わされた天の使いに違いない。感謝する。
その機会を設けたのはベアトリーチェじゃねえ。どこぞの魔女だ。いや、どっちも魔女には違いない。
お前が誰でもよい。私に機会を与えた。それで十分。感謝するぞ、ミラードとやる。
Kinzo slowly stood up and held out his right hand. He was offering to shake hands. It must have been Kinzo's way of expressing his gratitude. Will responded. Then the two hands gripped each other tightly in silence. When they did, a bright light poured out from the gap between the two hands. Oh shit. Will felt as though something the size of a grain had burned itself into his palm. It was the power that Burncastle had given him. The light grew brighter and brighter. However, it seemed that Kinzo and the others couldn't see it.
今こそ語ろう。私がベアトリーチェに、ベアトリーチェ・カスティリオーニに出会ったのは終戦間際。
We finally get her last name.
彼女は海の向こうからやってきた。
Castiglione. Son of a bitch. God, this really is reviewing all the truth, huh? Whoa. Back here in Fragment Dimension. Whoa, who the hell is this? Kinda looks like Batware. The hell?
お前は金蔵なのか。
昔のおじい様です。
Hmm.
写真で見たことがあります。これは一体。
ベルン・カステルのくれた感激者の力。無理に理解するな。
頭痛になら
分かってきた。
At one time, Genji told Batware that he looked like Kinzo in his youth. Well, yeah. Sure enough, though, the young Kinzo wasn't exactly the same as Batware. They looked very similar.
改めて名乗ろう。
Damn, I guess Kinzo always had white hair, huh?
私が後ろ宮金蔵である。
Yeah, it's Batware's VA as well.
おじい様。
Even the voice seemed to resemble Batware's somehow. Clearly, Batware had inherited Kinzo's blood more thickly than any other.
私は後ろ宮家など継ぎたくはなかった。私が当主に選ばれたのは運命のいたずらに過ぎぬのだ。
Because of the sixth toe.
関東大震災で主だった者が死に絶え、分家筋のお前が抜擢された。
そうです。おじい様は若くとも聡明な方で、当主にふさわしい貫禄を若くしてお持ちの方でしたから。
とんでもない。欲深な長老たちは互いの利益ばかりを主張し合い、まるで沈みゆく船で新しき船長は誰かと議論するような愚かさ。
だからこそ本家の誰ともしがらみのないお前が突然に抜擢を受けた。
全てはこの足の指のせいだ。足の指が一本ずつ足りなかったなら、我が人生は全く異なるものになっていたである。
In the usual Mirror family, polydactically was seen as a mark of good fortune. After all, many of the great ones in their family history had possessed it.
くだらぬ話よ。長老どもは自分たちの誰も得をしない馬の骨であれば誰でもよかった。
たまたま分家筋に両足の指が6本ある者がいると耳に入り、それでいいと決まったわけか。
そういうことだ。長老どもは自分たちの操り人形になるならどこの青二歳でもよかったんだ。むしろ帝王学に無知な人間ほど好ましい。
Just merely a figurehead.
おじい様。
リア、お前は違う。お前は我が全てを受け継ぐ者だ。お前が生を受けた日はそれは運命づけられていた。だからこそお前に銀の指輪を与え厳しく育ててきた。そなたは私とは違う。
I guess it is better to raise someone for the future of, being a leader rather than pin it on somebody when they're just young. Or just depends on the situation, really.
誰にも恥じることのない立派な当主跡継ぎであるぞ。
はい。
操り人形の当主か。気楽なものじゃねえだろうな。
As he pondered about where to begin, Kinzo laughed bitterly. It would probably bring back painful memories no matter where he started from.
あれはあまりに長い長い。はい、それは私には岩に蒸す苔のような気の遠くなるほど長い長い死。
They became the rope in the tug of war between the elders, who thought of nothing but their own profit. And I probably could have snapped at any moment. However, people are far more resilient than one would think. Though I spent many days as though I'd been killed, I was not killed. So I was forced to search for death on my own. Before I realized it, I'd reached an age at which the young would laugh at me if I tried to call myself young. The dizzyingly long stretch of gray was left completely empty. It lasted for a full 20 years. In 20 years, a person can be born, find a purpose, and even become their own man with their own place in the world. In short, if one truly becomes a human only when they have become a working adult, then I spent a period of time long enough to create a human, doing nothing but playing the part of this greedy elder's puppet. Ironically, though, that time aged my body. It did not age my mind. My mind alone was still as young as it had been during those rich, happy days before I was summoned to Odara. And yet, my body alone grew older and older. Eventually, the vast gap between the two reached almost incomprehensible levels. So, I could hardly believe that the worn-out man in the mirror was really me. No, it really wasn't me. The head of the usual mirror family was just a name. It had no power. It didn't require that I had any independence. There was no need for me to get involved with anything. I was just a doll sitting there in the doll rack gathering dust. I remember nothing but lazily flipping through Western books I liked, locking myself up inside my own world, doing nothing but playing with roses and drinking terrible drinks. And it lasted a full 20 years. Before I knew it, I suddenly had a wife I did not know. It wasn't any wife I had chosen. It was the daughter of some noble family that the elders had chosen, forced on me for their own reasons. But that did not matter to me. I did not love my wife, but neither did I dislike her. I just didn't care. I fathered a few children, but that wasn't out of love for my wife. They were just bored before I knew it. That's all there was to it. None of it mattered. No, that's not quite right. Everything was decided by someone other than me, and I simply obeyed. That was the job that the Ushiro Mirror family had. Once again, it's quite interesting. Kinzo himself was also locked in the birdcage, as we've seen with Ava, as we saw with Klaus, as we saw with Rosa, trapped within this birdcage. It's kind of ironic that Kinzo kind of repeated that same thing, you know. He let his family fight amongst themselves in order to gain the inheritance. Sure, Klaus was supposed to be the successor, but let's be honest, he wasn't the greatest leader in the first place. He made bad decisions all the time, took wrong deals here and there. Maybe because Kinzo, during his late years, just didn't care. All he cared about was Beatrice. All he truly cared about was the wife and daughter he lost. And tried to find any single way to bring them back. He just didn't care. He did not care for these children. Because they were never people to be affectionate towards. There was only ever one person, one sole person in the entire world that he truly cared about, that made him feel human, that made him feel love.
Ah, このまま自分は静かに殺されるなど。
信じられません。 強胆なる名君と称えられたおじい様がそのような日々を送っていたなんて。
リオンよ、自ら生きぬ人生ほど希薄で長いものはない。なのにそれはあっという間に過ぎ去るのだ。心せよ。
自ら生きる人生。
生きるってことは意志を持つということだ。殺された日々だったろうよ。
そうだ。私は生きたかった。いや、死にたかった。操り人形はどうすれば死ねる？
糸を断ち切ることです。
そうだ。それが死ぬことであり、生きることであり、解放だ。
Before I realized that trouble was brewing in the world. World War II. World War II. The Pacific War. Japan had extended their war fronts too far to the east and west, and the tide of war was changing. Thanks to the influence of the elders, I was able to avoid conscription. Of course, this was not out of compassion for me. It was because I was their precious puppet. So the war never really felt that close to me. However, when I personally decided to abandon their protection, it was very easy. At that time, the Ushiro-Mira family had almost completely collapsed. And since the elders had apparently gathered enough of the scraps to last them the rest of their lives, they seemed to care little for what I did, now that they no longer had any use for me. So I realized I had finally found my time to die. In war, huh? One by one, I cut the threads I was hanging from, and began to search for a place to end my life.
戦地で死を求めようとしたのか。
同じ死ぬなら誰かの役に立つべきと思った。いや、違うな。私には自らの命を絶つ気力さえなかったのだ。もっともらしく死ねる理由が戦争だったんだ。
Just a way to die.
おじい様は土木建築の知識がありましたので、海軍設営隊にて施設造成などに従事されたと聞いています。
とんだ誤算よ。何の取り柄もないと言っておけば、すぐにも死ねる最前線へ送られたものを。
最前線に行かずに済んだのか。
幸いと喜ぶ仲間もいたよ。私には逆だった。戦って死ぬという出来すぎた美酒の焼け酒が欲しかっただけなのだ。忘れられた島の上空を米軍の編隊は横切っていくだけ。彼らは私のために爆弾一つどころか鉛玉の一つさえ恵んではくれなかったのだよ。
おじい様はその日々の中でベアトリーチェにお会いになられたのですか？
そうだ。あれは海からやってきた。
どこで会った？
Most likely, then, she was very much Italian.
島と言ったが。
ここだよ。この島にやってきたのだ。
This island.
お前たちは六軒島で出会っていたというのか。
どういうことですか？おじい様が六軒島を買い取るまでは無人島だったと聞いています。この島に日本軍の基地があったなどとは初耳です。
そうだな。あんなものは基地とは呼ばぬ。ただの岩窟よ。私はその岩窟の番人だったのだ。
Guard of the cave, huh? Interesting, okay. 1944. Due to the honorable defeats at Saipan and Guam, Japan's absolute national defense zone strategy was in shambles. Where had the gallantry shown at Pearl Harbor gone? The old attackers were now the ones on the defensive. At that time, it was said that the last trump card for the Japanese military was a type of manned torpedo known as the Kinzo. It was said that these ultimate weapons, packed with 1.55 tons of explosives, were capable of sinking any kind of warship with a single blast. To strengthen homeland defense, the Navy drafted a plan to build a string of hidden bases from Haicho Island to Yokosuka, all to house submarines loaded with Kinzo torpedoes.
八丈島に基地が作られたことは知っていました。
I have to say, Rikushiro 7 really likes to talk about World War II, which is very interesting from other, specifically Japanese media, because Japanese media really don't go into World War II, since, you know. But I just find it very fascinating he's able to go there, since it's a very sensitive topic for Japanese people.
しかしそれが六軒島にもあったなんて。
どこの間抜けがこんな何もない島に作ろうと言い出したやら。一苦情の通。バカバカしい。お上の考えることなどわからぬし、私にとってもどうでもいいことだった。
I just have to say, this Kinzo sprite, it just reminds me a lot of fucking Carol from The Walking Dead. If anyone has seen The Walking Dead, obviously. But it just very much reminds me of her. The Cotton, which could finish off a large warship with a single strike, truly was an ultimate weapon. It was hoped that the presence of submarines capable of loading these weapons into the waters just off of Japan would allow for a powerful sea ambush as a final line of defense. So, to aid in the establishment of a base with absolute security, the uninhabited island Wokonjima was raised as a possible candidate. An investigation of the island resulted in the discovery of a large cave in the cliffs. This was apparently deemed to be a suitable location for a submarine base.
お前はその基地の建設に関わったわけか。
So I guess that would explain all the little tunnels we've been seeing throughout this entire game. It was established back in World War II.
建設岩窟を掘り広げただけを建設と呼ぶならな。しかもその上基地は未完成のまま放置されているのだ。
どうしてです？
Why? Because it went into 1945 and Japan surrendered.
当時の日本にそいつを詰めるほどの大型潜水艦はもう残っていなかった。
Dang.
滑稽な話だ。潜水艦もないのに潜水艦基地など今さら必要なものか。役人の無意味な箱物作りは今も昔も変わらぬわ。
The base on Haichijo Island was outfitted with Kinzo torpedoes and became a base for direct attacks, but Wokonjima was never supplied with any. Furthermore, the construction was eventually suspended, and a minimum number of men were stationed on the island, waiting for orders from above that never came. Could the fact that it was a hidden base actually have sealed our fate? The higher-ups had already completely forgotten about this useless and pointless cavern. We were nothing more than guards for a mere cave. We spent our days farming, fishing, and playing with the dirt, all the while gazing up at the American formations flying past. Some of our group were relieved at the prospects of the war ending before anyone remembered we were here, and before any of us had to face a real battle. Of course, it was the opposite for me. I hoped and hoped for the American troops to advance and kill me as soon as possible. You know what this is reminding me of? That one story of the Japanese soldier that thought World War II never ended, and he continued hiding on some island for about 45 years. I remember hearing about that. So it's kind of similar to this. Those days were empty and blank. Let us go back to the turning points in my life and my fate. The time that Ushiro Mira Kinzo finally became truly alive. Oh shit, okay. This is interesting. We're finally getting like a proper backstory of Kinzo and Beatrice and how they met.
貴様たるんでいるぞ。決戦は間近というのに、そのへっぴり腰は何か。
Stars seem to spin around inside my head. I could just lie down on the floor, but that would only make him more angry. I've got no intention of being obedient. Still, it'd be stupid to get myself punched for no reason, so I got up and stood at attention. The fighting's close, what is it? Do you really think the American troops are likely to show up on this forgotten island? Then let them come right now. That's what I'll be waiting for. I've been waiting for all this time.
その腐った目つきは何か。貴様、そんなに死にたくないか。そんなに米兵が恐ろしいか。そんな気合では打ち取れんぞ。
I got hit again. Could you please quit your whining already? Filthy cowards. They let themselves be controlled by this inexplicable anger because it's the only way to distract themselves from their own fear. Heart and spirit aren't of any use when the battle becomes hopeless. When trapped by insurmountable hopelessness, humans tend to rely on several other emotions to escape their fear. For these young, inexperienced soldiers, anger is a very convenient emotion to fall back upon. Anger is the wine they used to paralyze their fear. It made them chant, "Damn the British, damn the Americans," as they swung their bamboo spears around and called it drilling. The more wine you drink, the more you need to drink to get drunk. Their useless anger continued to pile up day after day without pause. I did not fear death, so I had no need of the wine called anger. This made their cowardice all the more apparent to me.
その目つきだ。後ろ宮、貴様の魂は腐りきっておるわ。魚だ。貴様の目は死んだ魚の目だ。
However, it went both ways. Just as I was able to spot their cowardice, they were able to pick up on my mythology.
後ろには金蔵はいるか。注意殿がお呼びだ。立て。もたもたするな。駆け足。
First Lieutenant Yamamoto was the commanding officer in charge of the Wakajima garrison. He was just another filthy coward trying to forget his fear with violence, and would often reprimand his subordinates for swacking off at the drop of a hat. Whenever he was in a good mood and started spouting off stories of his life, they were all about how much of a thug he had been ignoring the rules of society. On and on about how so-and-so was a prick, so he taught him a lesson, or how everyone was so scared of him that he got special treatment. He kept on talking about what a vile human he was as though it was a badge of honor. Normally, it had nothing to do with this lieutenant who I couldn't respect in any way. He'd always hang around with his non-commissioned subordinates. So, as long as I treated him with a snappy salute, I could more or less ignore him for the time being. Now that the construction project on this island has been suspended indefinitely, there's no longer any use for an engineer like me. So, why did the lieutenant ask to see me specifically? At that moment, I couldn't think of anything.
後ろ宮、貴 様は外国語が堪能であると聞いたが事実であるか？
英語と中国語を話せるであります。注意殿。
The lieutenant likened to brag about his education in front of the non-commissioned officers, but he held a bit of a grudge against me for being even more highly educated than him, since he also felt uncomfortable about having a subordinate who was older than him. I wasn't exactly the type he'd be willing to confide in. Just the fact that I knew several languages must have hurt his pride.
ならばイタリア語はどうか？
Bingo.
わかりません。
では貴様にイタリア人との通訳は務まらんというわけか？
英語を喋れる者がいれば可能と思います。
なるほど、確かに。貴様外国人と英語で話した経験はあるのか？
あります。
Why on earth would he need an interpreter in a cave on an uninhabited island that even our superiors forgot about? His questions made it clear that some guests had arrived in Wakajima who would need an interpreter.
よし、後ろ宮、貴様を俺の通訳に命ずる。
Oh boy. That evening, I found out exactly what he was talking about. Whoa. That pointless submarine dock in the cavern that had never been used was now being approached slowly by a submarine of the Italian Navy. What is this music? Of course, I knew that the Italians were our allies. However, this was the first time I'd seen anything from their military with my own eyes.
どうしてイタリア軍が？確か1943年にイタリアは降伏しているはずです。これはどういうことでしょう？
降伏したのはイタリア王国だ。だが、それを受け入れない者たちは親独政権 RSI を樹立させ、戦争を続けたのだ。
RSI？
イタリア社会共和国、別にサロ共和国。
Solo, huh?
詳しいな。何も知らぬ者は、イタリアは枢軸国の中で1943年にいち早く降伏した腰抜けなどと呼んでいる。それは間違いだ。イタリア社会共和国軍は開戦から1945年4月29日まで勇敢に戦った。
ベルリン降伏はその3日後だ。
Yeah. And when was Mussolini hanged? I can't quite remember. I don't know my World War II history that much.
腰抜けどころか大健闘だな。しかし RSI 海軍が日本まで航行できるような潜水艦を持っていたとは驚きだ。
そうでなくともはるばる日本までやってきたこと自体が驚きです。彼らがなぜ日本に、六軒島に？
Good question. The submarine was both weather-worn and massive. I doubt anyone had even imagined that a foreign submarine would come all the way out here, when we never even had one of our own submarine stock. All of the guards in Wakajima, which there were only about 30, stood at attention as the submarine docked.
イタリア軍は初めて見たぞ。何でも事故か失敗で航行不能になったんだぞ。換気装置がやられて塩素ガスが換気できなくなったって聞いたぞ。注意殿の話によると何か重要なものを運んでるって話だ。
Gold.
暗号変換器か新型エンジンなんかの設計図じゃん。
What if it's gold?
オラ積み云々より上層部がまだここを覚えててくれたことの方が驚きだぜ。
後ろ宮、早く来い。貴様は通訳だろうが。
はい、注意だ。
Now, I'm just going to make this an out there theory here. Since I know a little bit about World War II. Not like in depth. I'm not a World War II history nerd here. Come on. But a theory was, I'm just going to say their fucking name. The Nazis had a bunch of gold in that it was lost or whatever. The Nazis stole a bunch of paintings, specifically from like a certain Russian room, if I remember correctly. The whole thing. But I wonder what if that's the gold that they find later on. That tons of gold. What if it's actually Nazi gold? that would wind up with the timeline here. Oh shit. If the entire time the fucking Ushiro Mirror gold has been Nazi gold this entire time, that's gonna be fucking awesome. I'm gonna lose my mind if it is. Anyway. It would wind up. It would fucking wind up. Alright, whatever. Anyway, I probably figured way too much into it. On top of the hatch was a young Italian saluting us. Normally, this should have been the job of a commissioned officer, but his clothes looked like those of a sailor. And it really didn't look like he had the dignity and composure of a ship's captain. That probably meant that all of the commissioned officers in charge had died in the accident that had befallen the sub. Crew members crawled out of the hatch one by one, but they all looked pale and entirely worn out. I'm not sure how long ago the accident happened, but being crammed together in a tiny sub filled with chlorine gas for any amount of time can't be good for your health. Not only had the ventilators broken, but traveling about carelessly on the surface of the waters around Japan these days would be foolish in the extreme. It had been like a trip inside a can of poison gas. Almost all of them were unable to walk without leaning on someone else. It looked like a bunch of people staggering out of a hospital boat.
艦長は誰か聞け。私がこの島の指揮官であることを説明せよ。
ようこそ日本へ。英語がわかる。
The crew members seemed to understand that I was speaking English, but it looked as though none of them could speak it. Eventually, someone who seemed to be dressed as an officer saluted.
ようこそ日本へ。艦長でありますか。
I can not speak English. Please, wait.
Man, that Italian guy sounds very Japanese. The officer answered in slow, waverous English. After asking us to wait, he shouted something to his subordinates in rapid Italian. It looked as though he was telling them he had someone among them who could speak English.
後ろに何と言っている。
待てと言っています。英語のわかる人間を呼んでいるのかもしれません。
They're all saying boppity boopity. Don't worry, I can say that. I'm part Italian, fellas. But anyway, at that moment, I heard a high-pitched cough. It wasn't a man's cough. It was a woman's. Wow. As she came down from the hatch, a woman with beautiful golden hair said this in English. In this filthy cavern, the appearance of one as beautiful as she was seemed like an angel descending upon us.
ようこそ日本へ。艦長はいますか。
艦長は死んだわ。士官はあそこの彼だけよ。
お悔やみ申し上げます。
Yeah, her outfit is very much like reminiscent of like 1950s like war story type characters, you know, like Indiana Jones and the like. I love it actually.
何かお手伝いはできますか。
新鮮な空気と水が欲しいわ。まだ息のある人間もいる。休ませる場所が欲しいわ。
協力しましょう。他に英語のわかる人間はいますか。
いたけどみんな死んだわ。私だけよ。
後ろ宮、女は何を言っている。艦長は誰だ。さっきの男なのか。 その女は何者なのか。早く通訳しろ。
The lieutenant had just been yelling like that for a while now. He must have been surprised to see such a beautiful woman appear from the submarine. More than a little annoyed to see all of her attention focused on me alone. It was a mark of how divinely beautiful she was.
注意殿。彼女だけが英語をわかるようです。彼女が彼らの通訳になります。艦長は死亡。代表者は先ほどの士官のようです。
うるさくあなたに叫んでいる男は何者？まさかあなたの上司なの？
不幸なことに、私が美しいお嬢さんを独り占めしているのが気に入らないんでしょう。
あら、東洋人にお世辞をもらえるとは思わなかったわ。綺麗な英語ね。あなたは育ちが良さそうだわ。怒鳴っているみっともない男とは大違い。あなたがここの将校だったらよかったのに。
おや、私も西洋人にお世辞をもらえるとは思いませんでした。
あなたは面白い人だわ。名前は？
後宮金蔵です。よろしければお嬢さんの名前もぜひ。
ベアトリーチェ・カスティリオーニ。
ようこそベアトリーチェ、日本へ。
Love truly formed on the battlefield. In a way, I should liken it more to two different worlds coming across, Italian and Japan. That was when I first met Beatrice, the woman who would capture my heart for the rest of my life.
ベアトリーチェとはイタリア人だったのですか？
そうだ。彼女は RSI 高官の娘だった。どうやら彼女の父親こそが一番の罪人だったらしい。残念ながらロッケン島にたどり着いた時にはもう死んでいた。
その高官がなぜ日本に？スエズ運河からインド洋を越えてはるばる日本まで来たという。
確かに同盟国としてはドイツの方がはるかに近いはず。なぜわざわざ日本までやってきたのでしょう。
It has to be the gold.
途方もない規模の遠大な作戦か何かだったのかもしれん。その全容はわからぬが、その潜水艦がただならぬ任務を帯びていたらしいことは後に理解することとなる。
Whoa. They said that they had been about 60 of them at the time of their departure. However, only about 10 of them, including Beatrice, had survived. Their submarine apparently hit a mine or something in nearby waters and sustained a great deal of damage. They told us it had flooded rapidly with water, which had taken out the batteries and released a large amount of chlorine gas. Their sub had become completely incapable of continuing further. Nothing but a massive lump of metal floating by the dock. Since the sub seemed to be carrying something of immense value, the higher-ups ordered us to investigate. After questioning the Italians, with Beatrice and me acting as double interpreters, we concluded that this thing of immense value must have been her father herself. Apparently, Beatrice's father was extremely high up in the RSI hierarchy, and it was thought that he might have worked alongside Mussolini himself. Though their massive voyage had apparently been part of some top-secret mission, now that the man himself and all of the commissioned officers had died, the reason for coming to Japan remained a mystery. And our higher-ups were telling us to investigate, which meant that even they didn't know what it was. Their ship had broken down, their mission was unknown, the high official they had been carrying was dead, and even the Japanese government didn't know why they were here. The Italian's great perilous voyage had come to a meaningless and utterly fruitless end.
Yoかった。日本の潮風はてっきり醤油の匂いがすると思ってたわ。
お互い様です。イタリア人の髪はパスタでできてるって思ってました。
あら、そうよ。アルデンテに仕上げるには茹で加減が難しいの。なら日本人はみんなスパゲティ迷路だわ。
よくご存知だ。日本人はシャンプーの代わりにイカスミを使います。
金蔵はすごいわ。何でも知っているのね。イタリアに来たことがあるの？
ありません。しかし本はいろいろと読みました。
東洋人がイタリアの本を？へえ。例えばどんな？
ニッコロ・マキャベッリ、 ダンテ・アリギ
Machiavelli.
エリ、
Of course, Dante. Gotta have Dante's Inferno. And his free part.
だからあなたが永遠の淑女であることも存じていますよ。
Of course.
おお、なんてこと。金蔵はとんでもない勉強家だわ。あなたはひょっとして日本では高貴な家の出身なのでは？
さあ、どうでしょう。
あなたは他の野蛮そうな日本人とはまるで違うわ。私にはわかるの。あなたはきっと高貴な家の人間だわ。後宮家は日本の貴族の家柄なの？
とんでもない。紡績で一山当てただけでもただの成金の一族です。私が勉強していたのは高貴なる者としてのたしなみではなく、何をすることも許されなかったら本を読むかバラをいじるか酒に溺れるかしかやることがなかったからですよ。
There had been no trace of malice in Beatrice's words. There had just been a curious question asked to a friend from a faraway country. However, Beatrice was from a noble family herself, so she could tell. She could see the faint gloomy look in Kinzo's face.
許して、金蔵。あなたのような高貴な人がどうしてこんなおかしなところで兵卒の身分に甘んじているのか、深く考えなかったわ。
私の一族などどうでもいいことです。死ねば後宮などという姓は何の意味もない。そしてそれこそがようやく私を解き放ってくれるのです。
金蔵は死にたくて軍隊に？そんなのダメ。家族が悲しむわ。
家族など私には誰も。
I have a wife for the sake of public appearances, and children. However, I've never wanted any of them. Everything is a fleeting daydream created by those selfish, greedy elders. So at least while I'm on this island, I can forget all about all that and find some peace. Peace. But haven't I spent each and every day complaining that I wasn't sent to the front and haven't managed to die yet?
私にあなたの苦しみはわからないけれど、私の心ない言葉が傷つけてしまったことはわかるわ。許して、金蔵。
Forgive me, Kinzo. Yes, those words are probably what did it. All of the Japanese called me Ushiro. They reminded me that I was the property of the Ushiro family every time they talked to me. But she was different. She called me Kinzo. Not Ushiro. So maybe, just for the time I chat with her like this, I can forget that cursed family.
Kinzo.
I hadn't meant to make Beatrice feel guilty, but she seemed certain that her thoughtless words had hurt me.
ありがとう。あなたが私を金蔵と呼んでくれるから、私はやっと自分を取り戻すことができる。私はようやく本当の意味で私を見てくれる人に出会えた気がします。
金蔵、あなたはとても遠い異国で出会った外国人だけれど、あなたの心はとても繊細で美しい。私たちはきっと近所に住んでいたならとても当たり前な友人になっていたわ。私も嬉しいのよ。あなたは私のことをベアトリーチェと呼ぶ。カスティリオーニのご令嬢とは呼ばないわ。
That's why he never mentioned the last name. We were both in the same position. Her Castigoroni family must have been a rigid place as well. Though we came from different countries, we had finally found something that we both understood.
金蔵は親しい者には何て名前で？
いえ、普通に金蔵と呼ばれていました。
じゃあ、あなたは私をベアトリーチェと呼ぶのを改めるべきだわ。親しい人間は私のことをビーチェと呼んでいた。あなたもそうしてくれると嬉しいわ。
わかりました。
Peace.
これからは親しみを込めてビーチェとお呼びを。
ダメダメ。堅苦しい言葉はダメ。だって私たちはもう友人なのだから。
A bright smile stretched across Beatrice's face.
あの美少があれから何十年を経ようと我が記憶より薄れることはない。
おじい様はベアトリーチェと出会うことで自分を取り戻されたのですね。
平たく言いや浮気だな。
Shut up, Will!
ウィルさんは今後も出現を繰り返されるならお尻をかばわれる癖をつけることをお勧めします。
After having his butt pinched once more, Will hopped around in pathetic agony.
おじい様にとってロケン島は
I don't know, my my poor heart is fluttering. Wow, holy shit.
ベアトリーチェと初めて出会われた特別な場所だったのですね。
私がこの島に来ることがなければ出会うこともなかった奇跡の島なのだ。
Island of miracles.
その潜水艦基地の名残とやらは今も残っているのか。
クワドリアンの近くに今も残っている。外界からは見えぬ入り江の影だ。不吉がって漁師たちも近寄らなかった島だ。私以外に知る者はもはやいるまい。
クワドリアンと屋敷を結ぶ2キロにも及ぶ地下道はその基地の名残なのか。
そうだ。鍾乳洞を改造した広大な地下壕で地下を網羅し、島内各地を要塞化するなどという寝言の残骸だ。
I've been thinking this the entire time, but this submarine base reminds me of Uncharted. Specifically Drake's Fortune.
私はその地下道を生かし、島の両端に2つの屋敷を作らせたのだ。
That one was also because of World War II, but it was more of a Nazi submarine base, not a Japanese one.
2つの屋敷、2つの家族。後宮家の屋敷と後宮家から解放された金蔵の屋敷だったのですね。
Quite literally a double life.
そうだ。私には必要だったのだ。後宮という呪われた生から逃れるもう一つの場所が。
And the whole noble family thing reminds me of like Romeo and Juliet as well. Two opposing families with two young lovers from both families getting together. Cursed name.
しかし同情するよ。はるばる日本までやってきて任務を成し遂げられなかったとは気の毒の限りだ。
パパの任務が何だったかよくわからないわ。どこか遠くへ逃げ、大切な日までそれを隠さなければならないと言っていた。
Oh, it's the gold.
それとは
わからないわ。それはとても大切なもので、大切な日まで何年も隠しているつもりだったみたい。いえ、それと一緒に隠れているつもりだったみたい。私に異国の地で長い時間を過ごすことになるかもしれないと謝っていたから。
Also, I want to say, for some reason, this Beatrice outfit really, like, I don't know, I love it. Like, it's so simple, but it's like, I don't know, I just love it so much.
アンジェロ少尉は積み荷は特になく、君の父上が輸送すべき要人だったと言っていたが。
少尉はあなたたちを信用してないわ。私でさえ知っていることをいくつも隠してる。ひょっとすると少尉はパパの目的と積み荷を知っているのかも。
それが何だったにせよ、それはイタリア軍の任務さ。俺らには関係ないね。むしろ同盟国なんだ。頼ってくれればいいのに。
金蔵が良い人であることは疑わないわ。少尉にもあなたは信頼できる人間だと伝えてるんだけれど、どうして男というのは異教ではむやみやたらと厳格になるの？普段はみんなもっと陽気な人たちばかりなのに、ここへ来てからみんな妙に空気が張り詰めているわ。少尉は部下たち全員に常時銃を手放さないように命じてる。まるでここが敵地かのようだわ。
Afraid of the gold. That was true. The Italians were clearly the very opposite of relaxed. The Japanese soldiers watching this began to suspect that the Italians didn't really trust them at all.
軍人ならおかしいことじゃないさ。むしろこういう時こそ規律を引き締めて友軍に恥ずかしいところを見せたくないんじゃないか。
就寝時には必ず根津板を立てるし、もう航行できないスクラップ同然の潜水艦に今もあなたたちを近づけないように見張りを立てているわ。私はなんだか日本人を露骨に毛嫌いしているように見えて気持ちが悪い。
True, they had set up a constant sentry by the submarine and had refused to let any of the Japanese soldiers come near. This hadn't made the Japanese particularly happy. However, submarines are treated as classified in all countries. Maybe it was just natural for them to stop foreigners from approaching it without reason.
慣れない生活を強いられてみんな気が立ってるんだろう。天候と女将の都合で君たちを本土へ運ぶ船の派遣がまた遅れてる。君たちをいつ本土へ送ってあげられるやら。
We had been told that a boat was being sent for them directly from the mainland. But apparently, thanks to the weather, problems up the command chain in the recent air raids. They had no ships they could spare on a forgotten island like this. There may have been political issues as well. After all, the Italians' homeland had already surrendered to the Allies. I didn't know the details. The only thing I knew for sure was that they'd been stuck in Wakajima for 2 whole weeks, and no one had come to get them. Of course, we had some small boats in Wakajima. There was nothing physically stopping us from taking them to a nearby island. Still, Wakajima was technically a top-secret base, and contact with the outside world had been strictly forbidden.
仕方がないし、それも悪くないわ。だって船が来てしまったら金蔵とはもう会えなくなってしまうんでしょ。
To me, those 2 weeks were the first I'd ever truly lived. The faint 20 years before all seemed to vanish in the sparkle of that pair of weeks. I realized that she'd have to leave this place eventually, and yet this single moment felt so rich and dazzling that I felt myself wishing it could last forever. Then I heard a voice calling for Beatrice in Italian.
アンジェロ少尉だよ。君に用事みたいだ。
またお小言かしら。日本人とあまり親しくするなと最近うるさいのよ。
The second lieutenant approached, saluting Kinzo, and after glancing at Beatrice as though asking her to translate something, he began to speak in Italian. Judging by his tone, it sounded like something serious.
少尉はとても重要な話があるから、あなたたちの指揮官に合わせてほしいと言ってるわ。協力を求めたいと言っている。何のことかわからないわ。
重要な話。わかった。山本中尉を探そう。
Lieutenant Angelo had 2 of the subordinates with him and wore a stern expression on his face. They didn't have to say anything for us to realize that this had to be something very serious. Oh boy. Oh, here it is. The wench creaked and the thick chains rang out with a dull clang. Very, very slowly, it was lifted up out of the submarine's cargo hold.
なるほど。イタリア人どもが我々を潜水艦に近づけたがらないわけだ。
The first lieutenant and the others looked up at what the winch was slowly lifting up, all of them wearing unpleasant, forced smiles.
なんてこと。これがパパの運んでいた積み荷だというの。
Pure gold.
すごい。こんなの生まれて初めて見た。
Yeah. It was a mountain of gold ingots. Those carefully piled bars were being slowly lifted out of the cargo hold, one group after another. The gold had been their true cargo. I don't know where they were planning to take it. They might have been trying to sneak it into Japan, one of their allies, or they might have been on their way to hide it in some remote area. Was it some sort of strategy? A conspiracy, embezzlement? Top secret transportation of wealth? This incomprehensible amount of gold led to all sorts of dark suspicions, but we didn't know anything about the truth. All told, the gold weighed an incredible 10 tons. That was the only truth we could wrap our minds around at the moment. They had strongly resisted showing this to us. However, the submarine could no longer make sea and was apparently continuing to take in water bit by bit. Mokenjima had been outfitted in an extremely swift-shod way, so we had no means of repairing it. Also, although we could unload the sub, there was no way we'd be able to lift it up again once it filled with water and sent into battle. Now that transporting the gold away had clearly become an impossible goal, they apparently decided on unloading it. Of course, they made no effort to explain the reason behind all this gold. They just asked us to help them take it out.
なぜこんな大量の黄金をここがこれだけあればイタリアの戦局を変えられたかもしれない。
戦局を変えるのは武器。でも戦後は何の役にも立たない。確かにお金も戦局を変えはするでしょう。でも戦後にもその価値は変わらないわ。
There's no longer any way to change the course of this war. The Axis powers will probably all surrender, leading to an Allied victory. Anyone could tell that simply by looking at the American planes flying across the sky day after day. However, gold does not lose its value after war. Everyone stared upwards, dumbfounded, as the wind slowly lifted the dully sparkling gold. Gold, baby! God. Turned from murder mysteries, fantasy murder mystery, World War II story. Holy shit.
注意。
Fucking gold. It's always gold.
イタリア人たちはこの黄金のことを本土へ報告しないことを望んでいます。
我が国に横領されたくないからであろうな。
Here's what I'm gonna guess. The only people that survive this is Kinzo and Beatrice. The rest kill each other for the gold. I mean, 10 tons of gold can turn any man mad. Especially during a losing war.
彼は何と？
日本が黄金を横領するのを恐れているから報告されたくないのだろうと言っている。
少尉はむしろイタリア本国に知られることを恐れているわ。私たちにとって今の祖国は連合国の傀儡政権。彼らに知られれば黄金は返還することになる。しかしそれは私たちの敵に黄金を渡すようなもの。
They'd come all this way to make sure that the gold didn't fall into enemy hands. They needed to hide it from that puppet government until their homeland could be truly restored.
後ろ宮、イタリア人たちに提案せよ。我々は協力を申し出たいとな。
協力とは？
イタリア人たちの言い分はこうであろう。彼らはその黄金を祖国に知られることなく隠したいわけだ。しかしこの島から運び出そうとすれば輸送船を手配せねばならなくなる。そうすれば本土に知られ、さらにはイタリア本国にも知られることとなる。
そうなります。つまりあの黄金はもう六軒島からは運び出せない。
Their mission must have been to hide that gold in absolute secrecy until the day of their homeland's restoration. Later on, several plausible rumors would circulate about how Nazi Germany also moved much of its secret wealth to certain hidden areas in South America just prior to its collapse. Yeah. It was a very natural conclusion to reach. That submarine was their only method of transporting the gold in secrecy, and it's become completely useless. They can't fully stop the water from seeping in, and it'll probably sink completely before much longer. There's no longer any way for them to transport the gold in secrecy. In other words, the mission had ended in failure here in the Far East. So just how is Lieutenant Yamamoto proposing that we assist them?
この六軒島基地は誰も知らぬ秘密基地だ。近隣の島民たちはこの島を不吉な無人島と信じて近寄りもしない。
Yep.
言っている意味がわかるか、後ろ宮。
And they outnumber them about 30 to 10.
彼はなんと？
前にも話した通り、この六軒島基地は誰にも知られていない。見ての通り、戦略価値は何もなく、上層部にもすでに忘れられてる。注意は、この島に黄金を隠してはどうかと提案したいみたいだ。
Beatrice quickly translated this and told Lieutenant Angelo. He began discussing something rapidly with subordinates. They didn't look happy. Japan may have been their ally, but they probably didn't want to leave the gold for reconstructing their motherland in Asian hands. Still, it was hard to imagine any other option for them.
激しく議論しているわ。他に手はないという者もいるし、それでも祖国に忠誠を尽くすべきだという者もいる。少尉は板挟みになってるわ。
The final order given to them by their fallen homeland was to hide the gold. However, by now there was no way for that order to be carried out successfully. If the mainland or their own homeland found out, the gold would probably be confiscated by the wrong people from their point of view. If they really wanted to carry out their homeland's orders faithfully, Lieutenant Yamamoto's proposal was extremely reasonable. Though he couldn't understand their words, he seemed to realize how divided they were.
我々が協力すれば、あの黄金を厳重に隠すことができるぞ。幸いなことに、廃棄された地下壕が長々とこの島の地下を横断している。
この島の地下に黄金を隠して埋めれば、誰にも発見できないと言ってる。
現実的な申し出だと議論してるわ。でも日本人の手を借りるのに抵抗を感じてるみたい。
議論が難航しているようです。
議論の余地などあるのか、イタリア人。我々の協力なくあの黄金は隠せんぞ。まさかいつまでも波打ち際に積み上げておくわけにもいくまい。
アンジェロ少尉は黄金のことを知る人間を最小で抑えたいみたい。日本人は信用できないけど、山本中尉の申し出が今は最善と見てるみたいよ。でもいぶかしがってるわ。
何を
10トンの黄金を隠すという労力の提供と守秘義務を彼らが本当に無償で提供してくれるのかと。
What? Nah, this is just out of the kindness of their hearts.
五分。
Yeah.
注意、それはまさか。
あの黄金の半分を我々によこせ。それを手間賃に残りの半分を厳重に隠してやる。
半分をよこせと言ってる。
The instant Beatrice translated that sentence, Lieutenant Angelo slammed his hands on the desk and stood up. Instead of flinching, Lieutenant Yamamoto, true to his boast of once being a thug who everyone feared, actually looked even more relaxed and confident than he had previously.
本来なら断りようのない話だ。8割を要求してもおかしくない。それを敬意を表して五分と五分にしようと提案しているのだ。これは我々だけに有意な話ではない。イタリア人たちが外部にこのことを漏らせば、全ての黄金は日本かイタリアに接収されるだろう。我々には1円たりとも転がり込んでこない。我々は全員が共犯でなくてはならない。
全員に着服の共犯になると言ってる。 周囲はすでに軍人としてでなく個人として話をしている。
なんてこと。黄金に目がくらんだのね。
Lieutenant Yamamoto was grinning. He really did look as though he had been blinded by greed, just as Beatrice said.
あのまま山積みにしていれば、やがて本土から来る迎えの連中の目にいやおうなく入るだろう。そうなれば、ここにいる誰もが得をしないぞ。我々の申し出を受けて、さっきの黄金を隠すべきだ。
アンジェロ少尉は日本政府やイタリア政府にはどうしても知られたくないみたい。彼は自分が与えられた任務に最後まで責任を持ちたいみたい。
つまりどういうことだ。
何割かを口止め料として与えてでも島内に地中深く埋めることを望んでるわ。もちろん下士官たちには異論もあるみたい。5割は問題外だと憤慨してるわ。
後ろ見、イタリア人たちの感触はどうだ。
彼らも黄金がこれ以上の人目につくことを望んでいないようです。しかし取り分に異論があるようです。
少尉は1割ならば検討できると言ってるわ。
Oh, you think they're gonna go for 10?
無論山本中尉がそれで納得しないだろうとも言ってるけど。
後ろ宮、イタリア人の返事はいかに。
1割なら検討すると。
This time it was Lieutenant Yamamoto who swam down onto the desk. But the Italians didn't flinch either. An incredible tension filled the small room. However, despite his violent outburst a second ago, Lieutenant Yamamoto's expression still looked smug and in control. He was probably confident that he had now had the initiative.
1割 ?1 割そいいだろう。なら1割を譲ってやろう。しぶろくだ。これ以上は譲らんと伝えろ。
40% for the Japanese, 60% for the Italians. The lieutenant was talking tough, but in truth, these negotiations weren't being made on an equal footing. If the Italians had just wanted the gold for themselves, it wouldn't have been much of a problem. But what if they were true patriots? They decided to return the gold for the purpose of reconstruction, even to the defeated puppet government of their homeland. If so, they would probably report the existence of the gold to the Italian embassy. Eventually, the Italian government would petition the Allied nations for the retrieval of their gold. It probably wouldn't all make it back to Italy, but it might have been used effectively to repair and rebuild the battered towns. If that happened, Lieutenant Yamamoto and his friends would only be able to sneak out a few ingots at most. He was greedily planning to make this his own treasure island. Oh, fucking treasure island. Goddamn John Silver. I finished Black Sail. It's a fantastic show. I need to read the Treasure Island book. Anyway, so that he and his subordinates could have enormous fortune all to themselves. If he wanted to succeed, the Italians would have to keep the presence of the gold quiet. Goddamn it, Urker Gold.
しかし疑問だ。アンジェロ少尉が誰にも黄金を渡したくないなら沈みゆく潜水艦に任せて沈めればよかったはず。どうして荷揚げを。
考えたくはないけれど、命令が遂行不能になった時点で少尉はこの黄金を横領することを考え始めたのかも。
Yeah.
彼は今下士官たちに軍人としての意見と祖国に家族が待つ一個人としての意見を聞きたいと言っているわ。堅物の下士官たちが激高してる。
The discussion between the Italians was becoming fierce and emotional. Though their homeland had fallen, they had come all this way in accordance with its orders. They had probably been given this mission because they were particularly faithful and duty-minded troops. It seemed they couldn't just agree to a foreigner's proposal to embezzle and split up the gold. Lieutenant Andrew looked like he was doing all he could to calm the unexpectedly fervent rage of his subordinates. Looks like the gold is blinding them too. Everyone's mixing up their true feelings with how they want to be seen, and they can't make up their minds.
奴らの返答はいかに。後ろ宮。
リーチェン、周囲が返事を求めてる。
考える時間が欲しいと言ってるわ。私はあなたと話せたから気が紛れてよかったけれど、他の人たちはそうじゃないの。とても長い後悔の果てに大勢の仲間を失って極限状態でここにいるわ。唯一の心の拠り所だったユインももはや喪失してる。どうすればいいのか彼らも分かってないの。
Soldiers fighting a war that's already lost.
注意。彼らは時間が欲しいと言っています。
いいとも。大いに議論したらいい。しかし時間はないぞ。隠すとなったら時間と手間がかかる。明日の正午までに結論しろ。以上だ、イタリア人ども。
回答期限明日の正午だそうだ。周囲まるで脅迫だ。
少尉は全員の意見を聞くと言ってるわ。
感触は
多分難航するわ。少尉自身は山分けもあり得ると考えているみたいだけど、下士官や他の仲間たちは多分反対するわ。みんなこの極東までの航海で大切な仲間を大勢失ってる。彼らは堅くなに祖国への忠誠を貫きたがってる。
周囲の申し出は断ると。
断ってもどうせ黄金は誰かの手に渡るわ。何も残らないならせめてインゴットの一本ずつでも密かに持ち帰ろうという少尉の言い分に同調者も出そうだけど、こういう時の男って勢いだけが迷走するわ。私も見当がつかない。
I wonder.
イタリア人たちの胸中は複雑でしょうね。
彼らにとって降伏後のイタリアは敵国同然だ。黄金をそのイタリアに返還するのは彼らの長い旅路を全て否定するのと同じだ。
しかし黄金を着服して山分けすることも彼らの旅路の否定になります。
彼らが義理立てすべきそれはすでに滅んだ。その時点で彼らの旅路の意味などもう失われている。気の毒な話だ。
どうせ意味のないことならインゴットの一本でもありつけた方がまだマシだとか。
損得感情で言えばそうなる。そうならねえのが男ってもんだな。
It's called patriotism and always sticking to orders. The Italians were gathered in the cramped room, arguing fiercely.
反対です。死んだ戦友たちのためにも断固軍人魂を貫くべきです。
貫くとはどういうことか。この島に黄金を隠せということか。東洋人たちの申し出を受けるということか。
東洋人たちは信用できません。特にあの山本という男、断じて油断できません。
黄金を荷上げして日本人たちに見られたのはやはり失敗でした。艦と共に沈めるべきでした。
日本人の基地で沈めてどうする。やがていつかは引き上げられる。隠したことにはならない。いずれにせよこの島から黄金を誰にも知られずに運び出す方法はない。
洋上で名誉ある自鎮を選んでいたらこんなことには。
艦のダメージが致命的だったことがあの時点で分かっていたら、どうしてあの時少佐は日本軍に救援要請を。日本軍にこの黄金のことを知られたら少佐はどう任務を遂行するつもりだったんだ。
少佐が救援要請を出した時点で我々の任務はもう失敗していたんだ。諸君にも祖国で待つ家族がいるはずだ。そして極東の島国までよく航海に耐えた。それに対するこれは正当な報酬なのだという考え方もある。
あの時日本人に助けなど求めていなかった。
死んだ親友たちが浮かばれなきゃこんな目に。
Oh, what will they do?
少尉、日本人が友好的でない場合、我々は最終的解決手段を辞さない覚悟が必要です。
And here comes the topic of why don't we just take them out?
伍長、最終的解決手段とは何か。
Someone gulped. A stiff tension hung over the room.
日本人たちはたるみ切っています。実戦経験もない腰抜けばかりです。我々は精兵です。すでに基地内の間取りのほぼ全てと日本人の人数、配置状況は把握しています。少尉の命令があれば短時間で制圧できるでしょう。戦闘員と思わしきは山本を含めて数人程度。残りは軍属の作業員風情です。上辺の人数は日本人が上ですが、実質兵力ではこちらが優位です。
日本人を殺せば迎えの船が来た時、それをどう説明する。ごまかしようがないぞ。
死体さえ見つからなければどうとでもごまかせます。少尉、この基地を制圧するのは容易です。
And if this does go the way I'm pretty sure it's gonna go, this will be the first massacre on Wokenshima.
山本以下主要な兵士数人を殺してみせれば、あっさりと作業員たちは降伏するでしょう。彼らに黄金を運ばせ地中に埋めましょう。もちろん彼らの口は永遠に塞ぎますが、
日本人たちを皆殺しにするということか。
殺しましょう。全員殺せば黄金のことは誰にも知られずに済むのです。
At that moment, the supposedly locked door opened slightly, and a metal object was thrown in. The Japanese people were the Japanese soldiers were always going to take 100%.
Granada!
Yep! As a yell rang out, the table was kicked over to be used as a shield, and they all dropped to the floor. However, in this cramped room, it probably wouldn't do them any good. The Italians were all prepared for death. Oh shit. Fortunately, the shoddy grenade was a dud. The door was slammed open and 3 Japanese soldiers wielding pistols jumped in. God damn. In this small room, no matter who shot where, it was bound to hit someone. The exchange of bullets instantly caused a rain of blood with casualties on both sides. The 3 had jumped over and were covered with bullet holes and fell over, moaning and flashing.
Gino! 肺をやられてる。助からない。
こんな犠牲だ。あの手榴弾が不発でなかったら全員死んでる。
The grenade was still rolling about on the floor. It had been a surprise attack. Lieutenant Yamamoto had probably judged that the negotiations wouldn't go his way and decided to make the first move. Or maybe he'd been planning from the beginning to put them in a position where they'd be gathered in one place to discuss his offer. Wokenjima was their island. If they killed all the Italians, then not half, but all the gold would go to the Japanese. There was a chance the grenade might go off late. The Italians rushed out into the corridor. They heard gunfire from down the hallway. It was coming from the direction of the submarine dock. So clearly, the troops guarding the pile of gold were being attacked.
少尉、ご命令を。やむを得ん。日本人は殺せ。
God damn.
注意。あいつらできます。この連中ただの船乗りじゃね
え。なるほど。黄金の番人を任されるだけの兵士ということか。人数はこちらが上だ。焦らず囲んで殺せ。イタリア人狩りだ。
God damn now. A hail of gunfire. As soon as I heard the sound of repeated gunfire, I knew that something which had been smoldering since the time the gold was unloaded had finally burst. The eyes of our soldiers looking at that gold hadn't been normal. Yes, those eyes had been entranced by demons. The Italians had been pushed to the limits by the heavy burden they bore. Who wouldn't have snapped after being trapped in a distant land where you can't understand their language or the writing? Thinking I had to do something, I ran towards the sound of gunfire. Looking back on it, that was an extremely stupid thing to do. That sound meant that there were people shooting at each other. People killing each other. Yet, unarmed as I was, I dashed towards the sound as though I was trying to mediate some schoolyard fight. It didn't take long before I learned how foolish and naive that was in the heat of battle. Warrant Officer Hiroka was lying face down, his entire body drenched in blood. Judging by the trail of blood behind him, it was clear that he had somehow managed to crawl here from a different route before dying. No, he was still twitching. He might not be dead yet. But on this island without a doctor, no, even if we had a doctor, who could possibly save a man who had been shot this many times in the chest. When I looked into the room he must have crawled out of, I saw 2 more blood-stained Japanese corpses. Jesus. Truly presented with battle and death. I fell backwards prophetically on my butt, my mouth hanging open in shock. Come to think of it, that was the first time I had ever faced death in my life. The entire world was at war. Even though millions were dying both east and west, this was the first time I'd met with a person's death in a direct way. Ridiculous. Didn't I just join the army hoping to die? Didn't I whine about not being able to send to the front lines? Yeah, so rejoice, Kinzo. Isn't this the death you were looking for? Why not spread your hands and yell out loud, "Come for me, magnificent death!" Someone came running towards me. It was a colleague of mine, a Japanese man, Taijima-kun. He dashed towards me, pale-faced and out of breath. His face seemed horribly contorted with terror. Mine probably looked the same.
Tajima-kun, what happened?
Holy shit. Someone yelled in Italian at the same time Tajima-kun let out a scream. Then he grabbed onto me as he fell to the floor. A red stain was spreading across his back before my eyes. Jesus. As he spat bubbles of blood, he said that one word and died. But the shock of seeing someone die right in front of me did not freeze my heart. At a fundamental level, all living things are unconcerned with the deaths of others. The one thing that matters is whether they themselves die or not. It was the barrel of the gun the Italian soldier was pointing that force with my heart. Shit. Tajima-kun's back burst once more as he leaned against me. Flesh tore, blood splattered. The warm splash of it covered my face. Was the Italian still trying to fish him off even though he had stopped moving for good? How foolish I've been. Can I still not understand the scene in front of me? Rejoice, Kinzo! Now you'll finally get what you've wanted all this time! The Italian hadn't fired to finish off Tajima-kun. He had been aiming at the man Tajima-kun had fallen on. Me, Hushu Omira Kinzo. I pushed his corpse aside, scrambled against the floor, and dashed away, tumbling over myself. My hands had pushed off against the floor hard enough to tear off the ring fingernail on my left hand. Oh my god. When faced with death, humans truly can resist with all they've got. I tumbled over and over as I ran, scraping up parts of my body. It was painful, hot, but that didn't matter at all. I heard the yelling in Italian come from behind me over and over again. It felt like they were running, chasing after me. I didn't want to look back, so I kept on running and running as though the Italians were right behind me. This death. Did you want to die? No, I don't want to die. Why? Did I want to die so badly? But now I know. I know how wonderful it is to be alive. She taught me. Beast did. I can only be free when I talk with her. No. By talking with her, I finally came alive for the first time. I was born. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. I don't want to die. I want to live and see her right now. If I don't see her, I'll die. I'll be killed. Stay cool, Kinzo. She might be killed too. If you live and she dies, you might as well be dead. Before I knew it, my face was covered in tears, snot, and saliva. When I stumbled onto something and fell, I was finally able to come to my senses a little. I could still hear intermittent gunfire. The gunfight was still going on, and it had spread throughout the entire base. Beast, are you okay? I'll find her and take her to a safe place. The lieutenant will probably kill all of the Italians to steal the gold. Beast probably won't be an exception.
Beach.
I lived for the first time after meeting you. I was born, so if you die, I'll die again. I could feel every cell in my body being reborn, not as usual Mira Kinzo, but as a completely different Kinzo. Of course, I was terrified that I might really be shot if I went back, but I didn't want to die anymore. To truly die, so I was able to overcome my fear. Go for your love, Kinzo.
一体何が起こってるの？この騒ぎは何？
君は知らなくていい。そこにじっと隠れてよ。同胞が呼びかけるまで出てくるんじゃない。
Shit.
イタリア人の声が聞こえた。そこにいるぞ。
くそ、誰東洋人め。
Ruben stood with Beatrice behind his back and neatly shot the two men rushing at him with two M&M bullets from his Beretta M1934. However, one of the 8mm bullets from their Type 94 semi-auto pistols went straight into Ruben's chest. All three of the shooters were struck in the chest and fell down in a heap. Mutual death.
森の中へ隠れ。
The next person to appear was the commanding officer of the Japanese soldiers, Yamamoto. The blast of 3 guns had just sounded. Aiding on Beatrice's screams, it was hardly surprising that he had noticed the encounter. Yamamoto spat. Beatrice used that moment to snatch up Ruben's gun. Shit. He spat this last part at the two dying men who lay moaning on his feet. However, with what had happened to them wasn't particularly surprising. It wasn't the first time it had happened either. In this tiny, cramped tunnel, nearly everyone had met head-on. When both sides shot recklessly in such a situation, the result was 2 corpses. So whoever sent another person pulled the trigger quickest won. That was the only way to survive this battle without a bullet in their chest. Because of this, both Japanese and Italians had killed each other without hesitation. And they sometimes even pulled the trigger on oncoming allies. In the midst of all of this were several Japanese men who had stumbled into the fight, wondering what was going on. It didn't matter whether the other person was holding a gun or not. Everyone had reflexively pulled the trigger at the sight of anyone other than themselves trying to stay alive. The entire base had been wrapped up in this slaughter. There was a fierce gun battle taking place in the submarine dock, and a massacre resembling a hunt was taking place inside the base. Most of the non-combatants assigned to this base were killed before they knew what was going on. The Italians were indeed quite seasoned troops, but their numbers began to drop bit by bit. Blood-stained corpses were scattered everywhere. At first, it had probably been a proper gunfight. However, as their minds began to grow weary and numb, it devolved into that most basic cause of wars throughout humanity, the desire to kill all foreigners you don't understand. Whenever they heard words they didn't understand, they pulled the trigger. By that point, the screams of foreigners sounded no different from those of man-shaped beasts. After all, they couldn't understand pleading in another language, so it had long ago turned into a mere massacre. As the number of dead surpassed the number of living, silence began to return to the base. Just when it felt as though everyone had died and you could hear the distant sound of the wind blowing through the caves, there would be a sudden scream, the crisp sound of a gun, and you remembered that the massacre wasn't yet over. Over and over. Trapped within the concrete prison. Gunshots over and over, until there would be none left. This happened over and over again. Eventually, true silence fell. It marked the pitiful end for those led astray by gold. Oh, how greed can drive us all mad, and eventually lead to all of our deaths. The leader of the Italian soldiers, Angelo, had managed to survive somehow. He encountered nothing but the corpses of friend and foe. All was quiet once more in the base. If he was careless enough to call out, he might be shot from the shadows somewhere. So he snuck about like a panther, breathing quietly and searching for remaining enemies. There was no sign or trace of any living person. Maybe all of the people in this base had died. The Japanese struck first, but at that time we were also talking about killing them. They simply made the first move as military men, so perhaps we should be grateful for this day. Even if the boat had come to pick us up, there would have been no honor left for us. We would have been mere failures in our mission, unfit to face our dead comrades. Perhaps dying here in the Far East alongside my gun is a more fitting end for a soldier. I noticed the sound of shuffling feet coming from around the corner and strained to hear. Is someone seriously wounded and dragging their feet? Noticing them before they notice me greatly helps my chances. At this stage, there's no point in taking prisoners. We must dispose of all the Japanese. I'll dash around the corner, quickly check to see who they are, and shoot if it's a Japanese person. Nothing more. I've been hiding my footsteps the whole time. They probably don't know I'm here. Once the shuffling footsteps had come close enough, Angelo leaned around the corner and raised his gun. The voice that reached him spoke Italian.
あ
貴様を探していたぞ、アンジェロ少尉。
Golden Swatter. The perfect track name for this.
これで全員だな。俺はしっかり貴様らの死体を数えて回ってたんだからな。
しっかりして、アンジェロ少尉。
Blood poured from Angelo's chest. His gun fell to the floor and then his knees, and then the rest of his body crumpled and stopped moving. Yamamoto's accuracy with a gun wasn't particularly stellar. However, Angelo had waited until they were fairly close before jumping out, so Yamamoto had made the shot. He had managed to hit, even with a short-barreled handgun in one hand, and a woman as a hostage in the other.
それにしても我が六軒島守備隊の情けないことよ。まさか私以外は全員死んだのではあるまい。やれやれクズども。
女を盾に取らなきゃ戦えない人手だし、離して。
静かにしろ。イタリア女は実に騒がしい。おとなしくしてれば命までは取らんという。
It was such an obvious lie that even he wore their smile. The Italians were spies working for the enemy, and they all died along with the garrison in the gunfight. Since this was the story Yamamoto wanted to tell, he couldn't afford to have any Italian survivors. By this point, he wouldn't be able to keep the entire pile of gold, but he should be able to grab as many as he could carry. Even that would be worth a huge amount of money. Beatrice suddenly swung her head, smashing Yamamoto's nose hard. Come on, Kinzo.
こんなクソ甘。
She almost managed to escape. However, Yamamoto quickly grabbed her leg and tripped her. She fell into her back, and Yamamoto mercilessly stomped his foot down on her stomach and pointed his gun at her.
じゃじゃ馬を飼いならす趣味はないのでな。貴様は死ねえ。
Oh shit.
注意、彼女は無関係だ。離してやれ。
Kinzo had jumped out from the shadows. He was holding a gun he had stolen from one of the corpses.
後ろに。おう、生きておった。
彼女を離せ。苦しがって。
貴様であろう。イタリア人どもに攻撃があることを密告した。
何の話だ。
Try to justify himself. Yamamoto didn't know that the grenade had been a dud. He had been sure that the surprise attack would work, but it hadn't. So he just assumed that Kinzo must have tipped him off.
貴様のせいで奇襲が失敗してこのざまだ。この裏切り者め。貴様がこのイタリア女を通じて内通していたことはお見通しよ。
あなたが黄金に目がくらんだからこの事態を招いたのではないのか。
逃げて金蔵。この男は命乞いしてる人も撃ったわ。あなたも撃たれる。
喋るなイタリア女。もう一度口を聞いたら容赦なく撃つぞ。
Yamamoto grabbed his heel into Beatrice's gut.
よせ、やめろ。彼女は何の関係もない。
銃を上官に向けるのはどういうつもりだ。頭を冷やせよ愚か者め。私とお前で口裏を合わせる。あの黄金の山は私たちだけのものではないか。私一人では少々くすねるくらいしかできんが、お前と二人でならもっと多くの数をくすねることができる。上官面をするつもりはないぞ。男同士二人できっちり回っ
けしよ
五分五分に分けようと言って、あなたは彼らの寝首をかこうとしたのではないのか。
Yeah, I don't think we're this team.
後ろ見。どうやら貴様は黄金より鉛の方がお好みらしいな。
Oh shit. Without any hesitation, Yamamoto raised the barrel of his gun towards Kinzo and pulled the trigger. It grazed Kinzo's right ear. If Yamamoto's saying had just been a little better, the bullet would have slammed into Kinzo's face. Not letting Yamamoto's momentary distraction go to waste, Beatrice lashed out and planted her right foot in Yamamoto's crotch. After moaning in pain, a demonic expression flashed across Yamamoto's face, and he stomped on her chest. Take the shot, Kinzo! Beatrice shut her eyes tightly, hoping that she could withstand the coming pain. No one wants to watch the moment they get shot. Drip, drip, drip. A blood splash poured out of Yamamoto's chest.
あんたがあんたの都合で大勢の命を奪ったように、私も私の都合であんたの命を奪う。
Could Yamamoto hear Kinzo's words until the end? In his last moments, he seemed to grin. Then slowly, he fell backwards with a spurt of blood.
Kinzo! 無事なの？てっきりあなたが撃たれたと。
Beatrice tried to stand up, but then doubled over and started coughing.
ビーチェ、怪我をしたのか？
あばらが痛むわ。その人でなしが激しく踏んだものだから。
大丈夫か？折れていなければいいんだが。
これくらいで折れるほどイタリア女はやわじゃないの。でもありがとう。あなたは命の恩人だわ。あなたが来なければ私はきっとそこに転がっていたわ。
Yamamoto had shown no mercy. Her ribs were probably cracked. We didn't have the option of waiting, possibly for several days, for the ship that was coming. I made the decision to carry her away from the island. The man who kept yelling about preserving the secrecy of the base is lying there dead. The next island over, Nejima, is close. The small boat should be more than enough to get us there.
君を病院へ運ばなければならない。君が思っているより傷が深かったらいけない。
知らなかった。この島には病院もあるのね。
ない。隣の島へ船で運ぶ。君は病院へ。私はこの島での出来事をうまく片付けないと。とばっちりで軍法会議者だ。
頼みがあるの。私を病院へ連れて行かないで。
どうして？
病院へ行って大使館に連絡が行けば私はやがて本国へ送還されるわ。そしてきっとあれこれと尋問を受けるんだわ。私はママを見殺しにした奴らを自分の祖国とは認めないの。もう私の帰るべき祖国はないの。こ ここが私の終点だからもう私はどこへも行きたくないの。私に優しくしてくれたアンジェロ少尉もルーベンスもみんな死んでしまった。
だから君までここで死ぬと。イタリア女はヤワじゃないんだろ。生きるんだ。
ねえ金蔵、生きるってどういう意味？あなたが教えてくれたはずよ。生きるってのはただ息をすることじゃないわ。私はイタリアへ帰りたくないの。
ビーチェ、
あなたは私と出会うまで死んでいたと言ってくれたわ。でもそれは私も同じなの。潜水艦の中で祖国も滅び、ママも死んだ、パパもね。私はこんな船沈んでしまえと願ったわ。だからここにたどり着いた時、実は死に損ねたとがっかりした。その矢先よ、少尉が英語がわかる者はいるかと騒ぎ出したのは。
When Kinzo met Beatrice, he finally forgot about dying. And when Beatrice met Kinzo, she also forgot about dying.
私は祖国も家族も友人たちも失った私をあなたにさらってほしいと願うの。
ピーチ
ェ。でもそれは叶えられない望みだとも分かってる。ならばせめて迎えの船が来るまでの数日間をあなたと一緒にいたいの。胸の痛みなんて気にしない。だって迎えの船に連れ去られたら私はもう死んでしまうのだから。
Beatrice spoke this, smiling softly. She did her best to hide the pain in her chest.
お願い、金蔵。迎えが来るまでの数日間でいいから私をさらって。
その願いは叶えられない。
Looking apologetic, Kinzo lifted Bito up and gently sat her in the boat.
育児なし。やっぱり日本の男は軟弱だわ。
そうだな。私は育児なしだ。だから君の願いは片方しか叶えられない。
With a clunk, he placed it, wrapped in the jacket on the boat.
片方とは
A bar of gold.
迎えが来るまでの数日間でいいからの方が叶えられないということさ。
どういう意味？
君をさらう、そっちを叶えることにした。
金蔵。
There has to be a doctor named Chima. I'm wearing a Navy uniform. I should be able to pass myself off as a survivor of a boat carrying a VIP that was sunk by enemy ships. If the doctor happens to be the greedy sort, all the better. After all, I have right here the golden magic to make people do what I say. A witch from a distant country took my wife's body and gave me its soul. A woman came to me with the gold and revived me with her magic.
君は魔女だ。黄金の魔女だ。
魔女よ。みんなと同じレシピで作ってるのに、私だけがパスタから消し炭を生み出す錬金術が使えるの。あなたと同じく私も、あなたがいてくれる限り生きることを許される仕方に。あなたがいなくなったら、私はすぐにでも死んでしまう。
死なせない。
本当に？
絶対に。
だってね、責任。だってあなたは私をさらったんだから。
そうですか。
Makes sense now. Makes so much sense of why Kinzo always hid her away. It wasn't just because she was a mistress. Part of the reason, yes, but because, well, she had no place left to go. Their family was dead. Her homeland changed beyond what she originally saw. And just like Kinzo, she had also been, by a miracle of happenstance, able to survive both the massacre and able to live. Truly a golden witch, with a golden bar, able to get anything he wanted. A miracle. Why wouldn't he build a mansion, his home, on the island that he was able to meet this woman that he have never met? He would have just died on the battlefield, or some other way, naturally, to live. A miracle. It makes sense why Kinzo fell into such madness, such grief, such despair over the death of a woman.
金蔵さんがそこまで話しましたか。
Oh, were you the doctor, Nanjo?
では、まさかあなたなのですか？
Of course.
おじい様がベアトリーチェを連れて行った新島の医者というのは。
驚くに値しねえ。新島の医者って時点でピンと。
Yeah.
突然海軍の兵隊さんが外国人の女性を連れて現れたのです。驚きましたとも。しかもその上軍機なので秘密で治療しろというのです。
それがおじい様との初対面だったのですか？
そうです。それが金蔵さんと初めての対面でした。
黄金で言いなりになった欲深な医者ってのもお前のことなのか。
これは手厳しいですな。
I mean, I did a little bit for the gold, but you know.
突然外国人の女性患者を連れ込み、軍機だから秘密にせよと言い、治療代は必ず持ってくるから担保にと言って黄金のインゴットを差し出す相手ですぞ。厄介事はごめんでした。しぶしぶとですとも。
確かにそれもそうですね。でも南條先生はベアトリーチェをかくまってくれたんですね。
金蔵さんほどではありませんが、私にも英語の心得がありました。二人の会話を漏れ聞き、二人が決して厄介な何者かでないと確信したからです。
もちろんインゴットに目がくらまなかったといえば嘘が過ぎますがな。私も今よりは若かったものですから。
その後彼女は
しばらくの療養の後、後ろ宮家の使いの方が来て小田原に移すとおっしゃいましてな。引き取られていきました。
おじい様が自分で迎えに行ったわけではないのですか？
金蔵がどう六軒島の事件を言い訳したにせよ、しばらくの間は自由には動けなかっただろうよ。
ですな。軍をごまかすのが金蔵さんの人生で一番の大勝負だったと言っておりましたな。
ベアトリーチェは小田原に行って、それから
使われていない別荘の一つにかくまったと聞いています。当時の金蔵さんにはもう家族がおられましたからな。そこはうまくやられたのでしょうな。
クワドリアン以前から二重生活はお手の物だったというわけだ。さ
何してるんですか？
The hell?
お尻におできでも？
ち
それからベアトリーチェはおじい様の保護で別荘でいつまでも。
Oh no, I just realized what he did. He fucking moved away from me. Could you stop fucking pinching my butt, man?
平穏につつましやかに暮らしたと聞きます。それから数年の後、彼女に子供が生まれましてな。
They had a child, huh?
クワドリアンのベアトリーチェの誕生か。
出産がうまくいかなかったそうで、お気の毒なことです。
Miscarriage.
まさか亡くなったんですか？
驚くな。金蔵は娘を生まれ変わりと信じたんだぞ。心をないがしろにするんじゃねえ。推理は可能だ。
そうですね。失礼。
私は金蔵さんが彼女と過ごされた小田原の数年間を知りません。しかしその後の今日までの金蔵さんを見れば。
No, Beatrice died in the birth. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That makes more sense.
ほんの数年間であっても彼がいかに彼女を深く愛したか伺い知ることができるでしょう。
そうですね。
そして娘のためにクワドリアンを作ったというわけか。
金蔵さんは潜水艦の黄金を元手に巧みに立ち回り、たちまちのうちに財産を築き上げていきました。また持ち前の英語力を生かし GHQ に強いコネクションを作ってみるみるうちに大富豪となられたのです。
Of course.
この辺はリオンさんに説明する必要はありますまい。
ええ。その莫大な財産で六軒島を買い取り屋敷を建てます。小田原の親族たちは無人島を丸ごと買い取ったおじい様を酔狂だと笑ったそうです。
10トンの黄金がポケットに収まる大きさだったなら金蔵も島を買わなかったろうよ。
He had the gold somewhere in Wakajima. Built up a fortune of Higgins, he had taken out of it, then bought up the old treasure island.
ですな。そして後ろ宮家の黄金伝説が始まるのです。
インゴットには片翼のわしが刻印されていたと聞く。
Probably did it for one.
片翼のわしというよりは片翼に見えてしまうわしというべきでしょうな。
それはどういう意味ですか？
ヨーロッパに多いでしょう。
Wait.
翼を広げたわしを紋章にしたものはサロ共和国の国旗にもわしが、いやいや鷹でしたかな
Huh.
が刻まれています。
刻印が薄かった、あるいは粗雑だったということか。
Only half an
そうです。戦時下の粗雑な刻印でした。本来は翼を広げたわしの紋章が刻印されるべきだったのでしょう。それがちょうど斜めに断ち切ったように半分薄れて消えていたのです。
翼を広げたわしが半分消えて、それが片翼のわしに見えた。
Wow. So that's where that symbol comes from.
金蔵は自分の運命を大きく変えたベアトリーチェの黄金に片翼のわしを見て、それを自分の紋章とすることを決めたに違いあるまい。
果たして正しく刻印されていたなら、それは共和国旗の鷹だったのか、それともまさか相当の、いやいや、そんなまさか。あの莫大な黄金の山の前で金蔵さんと杯を傾け合いながら黄金ロマンで夜を明かすのはなかなかに楽しいことでした。もっとも金蔵さんはその刻印から黄金の出所を探られることを嫌いましてな。外部に持ち出す黄金にはわざわざ自分の片翼のわしをデザインした別の刻印を打ち直していたようですが。
お前には見せるだけだったのか。金蔵もケチだな。
無論大富豪になった後、金蔵さんは再び私のもとへ訪れ、未払いだった治療費をしっかり払ってくれましたとも。治療費にはちと多すぎましたのでな。ちゃんとお釣りを払いましたが。
それ以来おじい様と交流を。
そうです。金蔵さんは私が秘密を守ってベアトリーチェをかくまったことをことのほか深く感謝してくれましてな。
おじい様はかつての小田原の親族たちは欲深の嘘つきばかりだとおっしゃっていました。南條先生の義理堅さが嬉しかったに違いありません。おじい様のような方がどうしてあなたにだけは心を開いたのかわかる気がします。
私にも多少の異国趣味とチェスの趣味がありましてな。金蔵さんとは以来意気を統合しましてこうして細々と、しかし気づけば随分と長くお付き合いをさせてもらっています。
大きな金を扱うやつほど小さな金にもきっちりしてる。治療費以上をもらおうとしなかったあんたの律儀さに惹かれるところもあったんだろうよ。
とんでもない。大きなお金に怯えてしまっただけです。後になってから後悔しましたとも。どうにも昔から肝が小さいものでしてな。
そんなことはね。肝は十分に不定さ。
そうでしょうか。お世辞でも嬉しいですね。
世辞じゃねえ。
You're fat as fuck, Nanjo. For at least one whole year after Kenzo's death, Nanjo had taken part in hiding the secret of the death. Of course, Natsuhi must have given him some hush money. Still, there could be no doubt that he'd had enough guts to withstand pressure from Kinzo's children for a long time, without slipping up once.
大した肝っ玉じゃねえか。
Yeah.
義理がたいのがお前の性分なんだろうよ。
He's a loyal friend to the very end.
それしか取り柄がないものでして。
おじい様は良い友人に恵まれたと思います。
Wow. Fucking shit, man. Birth of Beatrice.
おじい様にとって
And I think this is a good stopping point here. Wow. We got a lot of answers. We finally got how Kinzo met Beatrice and I kind of get it. Why he went so mad, you know? Why after the death of her, he stopped living as a person, you know? After the death of both his wife and the death of, you know, his daughter, why he became full of madness, because he had nothing else to live for. It was never about the gold, it was never about anything else. It was always about her. Nothing else. Holy shit. Wow. Wow. Just, that's all I can say. Is wow. Fucking next episode, we're probably just going to get more answers and more into the birth of Beatrice and see how, you know, what eventually turned Kinzo into the man we now see today. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this type of content, hit that subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. Want to tell me something, put that in the comments below. If you want to check out the Discord server I hang out in, or my church, check the description below. And yeah, it's been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!